I believe the most painful part of avoidant behavior isn't simply the distance, the emotional walls, or even the confusing hot and cold cycle that can leave you questioning yourself for months. The cruelest part can come at the very end, when they finally realize that they have truly lost you. There comes a point when they understand this isn't another argument, another temporary silence, or an attempt to get their attention. They realize you're not waiting for the storm to pass. You're genuinely finished, completely finished. You've stopped chasing them. You've stopped repeating what you need. You've stopped trying to explain why their behavior hurts you. You've stopped hoping that one day they'll finally understand and become different. Your emotional world no longer revolves around whether they're close or distant, loving or cold, present or withdrawn. You move beyond wishing they would change. Then you accept that they probably won't. And eventually, you begin creating a life that no longer depends on them being part of it. And that's when something can change. But it isn't always growth. It isn't necessarily self-awareness or the kind of remorse that produces real, lasting change. Sometimes what changes is simply their approach. The person who couldn't offer consistency when you needed it, who couldn't be emotionally present when you asked, and who avoided commitment when the relationship required it, may suddenly know exactly what to do to pull you back in, and this is where the final move can become so dangerous. Instead of changing because they have genuinely done the work, they may suddenly behave in ways that shake your confidence in leaving. They may make you question your memories, doubt your reasons, and wonder whether you gave up just before everything could finally become what you always wanted. The goal may not be true transformation. It may simply be to disrupt your certainty enough that you return to the same relationship dynamic that was slowly hurting you. What makes this especially painful is the timing. By now, you've already done some of the hardest emotional work imaginable. You've accepted that someone you love may not be capable of meeting your needs. You've chosen yourself even though your feelings were still there. You've found the strength to walk away. You've protected your boundaries while grieving someone you didn't want to lose. You've fought your way to a place of self-respect. And just when you're standing there, exhausted and emotionally raw from everything it took to leave, they may present you with their most convincing version yet. Not the familiar behaviors you've learned to recognize. Not the obvious patterns you spent months defending yourself against, something much more difficult to resist. They may offer you exactly what you've always wanted. Suddenly, it can look like they've grown, like they've finally understood, like losing you was the moment that changed everything. They may make you believe that walking away somehow awakened the person you spent months or even years waiting for, and that's why this moment can be so powerful. Deep down, a part of you desperately wants it to be real. You want to believe that your pain meant something. You want to believe that the person you loved can finally love you in the way you needed. You want to believe that all the conversations, tears, patience, and disappointment weren't for nothing. This final attempt can feel so convincing because it gives you what you wanted most and makes it seem as though your decision to leave finally achieved what all your previous efforts could not. But one important thing to remember is that sudden change is not always lasting change. In many unhealthy relationship patterns, a dramatic shift happens when the fear of losing the relationship becomes real. Once the immediate crisis passes and the person feels secure again, the old behaviors can quietly return. That's why understanding this moment matters. It can protect you from undoing the progress it took you so long to make. It can help you look beyond an emotional performance and ask whether anything has truly changed beneath the surface. And it can prevent you from giving away more months or years to a pattern that remains the same despite a convincing moment of panic, fear, or renewed effort. This kind of final move often appears at a very specific point, when they realize they can no longer rely on you to stay. Your leaving changes the situation. For the first time, They may feel that you're truly beyond their reach, and suddenly the relationship they were comfortable taking for granted feels like something they might permanently lose. That's when they may become everything you once begged them to be. The person who rarely replied may suddenly contact you constantly. The one who struggled to talk about feelings may suddenly become deeply expressive and vulnerable. Someone who avoided making plans may suddenly speak about the future with excitement and detail. A partner who kept physical or emotional distance may suddenly become affectionate, attentive, and intensely present. All the things that seemed missing can suddenly appear at once. Attention, reassurance, affection, emotional openness, commitment, and plans for the future. And naturally, this can leave you confused. The contrast is so dramatic that you may wonder why they couldn't do these things before. The timing is often what makes it so difficult to understand. These changes appear after you've accepted what you couldn't have, after you've made peace with the loss, and after you've started learning how to live without them. They may also begin making promises or gestures that could have solved so much pain if they had happened when you were still asking for them. Suddenly, they're ready to commit, ready to take the next step, ready to meet your family, make the relationship public, build a shared future, or offer the security they once kept just out of reach. There may be flowers, gifts, long messages, emotional letters, elaborate dates, and declarations that sound like everything you spent so long waiting to hear. And these gestures can hit you deeply because they speak directly to the part of you that once wondered whether they cared enough. The part of you that kept hoping they would finally show effort. When that effort finally arrives, it's understandable to want to believe it means they have finally recognized your value. They may even tell you they've had a major realization. They may say that losing you opened their eyes to their patterns and showed them what their fear had cost them. They may frame your departure as the wake-up call that finally broke through their defenses. And the story can sound incredibly convincing because, in many ways, it's the story you always hoped to hear. They may tell you that they finally understand, that they see how they hurt you, that they took you for granted. That fear kept them from being vulnerable, that they couldn't see clearly before, but losing you changed everything. And in that moment, the question isn't whether their words are beautiful enough to believe. The real question is whether those words are supported by consistent actions over time. Because genuine transformation isn't proven in one emotional conversation, one dramatic gesture, or one desperate attempt to stop you from leaving. Real change has to survive after the fear of losing you fades, and that's the part you should never forget. Avoidant heart wants you to know that you don't have to make a decision based on someone's sudden promises alone. You can listen without immediately returning. You can care about someone and still protect yourself. And you can recognize their pain without sacrificing your own peace to rescue them from the consequences of what they repeatedly chose. I understand what I need to change now. Losing you showed me things I was never willing to face before. I'm not the same person anymore. Words like these can be incredibly difficult to resist because they seem to validate everything you went through. Suddenly, they are confirming that you weren't imagining the problems. They're admitting that your pain was real, that their behavior was damaging, and that you had every reason to walk away. At the same time, they're offering you something even more powerful, the hope that leaving finally achieved what staying never could. It can make you believe that losing you was the event that finally pushed them toward real change. Your departure becomes part of their story of growth. Your suffering starts to feel meaningful because they present it as the thing that awakened them. And naturally, the possibility of getting back together begins to feel different because now they appear to be a completely changed person. They may even come with what looks like solid proof. Perhaps they've started therapy. Maybe they're reading books about attachment and relationships. They can explain their patterns in detail and talk about specific changes they're making. This time, it doesn't sound like another vague promise about doing better someday. They seem to have evidence. They may show you information about their therapist, send you pictures of books they're studying, or tell you about insights they've discovered regarding their attachment style. They might describe new behaviors they're already practicing rather than simply making promises about the future. They may even invite you into their healing journey, asking you to read about attachment with them, sharing what comes up in therapy, or wanting your thoughts about the plan they've created for themselves. And of course, this feels different. It appears concrete. It seems thoughtful and detailed. It looks like they've invested time, effort, and even money into facing the issues that once destroyed the relationship. And if you spent years encouraging them to seek help or confront their patterns, seeing them finally do those things can feel deeply validating. It can make you think they finally listened, they finally understand, maybe this really can change. Then there may be a level of vulnerability you've never seen from them before. The person who rarely showed emotion may suddenly cry in front of you. The person who avoided apologizing may offer a detailed apology that names exactly how they hurt you. Someone who always kept their inner world hidden may suddenly tell you about their childhood, their fears, their regrets, and the pain they feel over losing you. That vulnerability can be incredibly powerful because emotional openness may have been the very thing you wanted most throughout the relationship. You wanted to know what they felt. You wanted honesty. You wanted them to recognize their wounds instead of allowing those wounds to control the relationship. And now, suddenly, they're telling you everything. They may explain the experiences from their childhood that shaped their attachment patterns. They may describe how fear made intimacy difficult for them and why they pushed you away when you tried to get closer. They may openly acknowledge the specific ways their behavior affected you. For the first time, it can feel as though their walls have finally come down. You may feel like you're finally meeting the person hidden behind all those defenses. And because this emotional availability is something you waited so long to receive, it becomes very easy to believe that the change is finally real. Another part of this pattern can involve creating pressure around the idea of reconciliation. They may make it seem as though this opportunity has a deadline, as if you need to decide now while they are open, emotional, and ready. Sometimes they'll say it directly. I'm willing to do this work right now, and I want to do it with you. But I don't know how long I'll be able to stay in this place if you don't give me another chance. Other times, the pressure is less obvious. Maybe they're planning to move away. Perhaps a new job or changing circumstances could make reconnecting more difficult later. They may casually mention that other people are interested in them, creating the impression that they won't wait forever. Whatever form it takes, urgency can stop you from doing the one thing you need most, slowing down. When you feel pressured to make a decision quickly, you're less likely to carefully observe whether the change is genuine. You're more likely to respond from emotion, fear of regret, or the excitement of possibility. The urgency encourages you to reach for the opportunity before it disappears, instead of asking whether the opportunity being offered is truly what it appears to be. And that's why rushing back can be dangerous. Time is what reveals whether a new pattern is sustainable or whether someone's behavior only changed temporarily in response to the fear of losing you. This final move can feel different from everything that happened before. It's not simply another episode of distance or another empty promise. It can arrive in a form that is far more difficult to recognize because it comes when you're emotionally exhausted and least prepared for this particular approach. During the relationship, you probably developed ways of protecting yourself. You learned to recognize withdrawal. You became familiar with the hot and cold cycle. Eventually, You learned not to place too much faith in promises that weren't followed by action. But leaving is a completely different kind of battle. You've spent enormous emotional energy reaching the point where you could finally walk away. You're grieving, even if you know leaving was necessary. You're tired, and somewhere inside you, there may still be a part that desperately wants to discover that the ending wasn't necessary after all, that they really have changed, and that you don't have to lose the person you love. This is what makes the sudden transformation so tempting. It offers you everything you once wanted, while making it seem as though your boundaries finally worked. Think about everything you tried before you left. You communicated, you explained your needs, you talked about your pain, you gave them opportunities to understand. You tried to help them see the patterns that were hurting both of you, and nothing seemed to change. Eventually, you walked away, not necessarily because you stopped loving them, but because you finally accepted that love alone wasn't enough. You accepted that they either couldn't or wouldn't give you the kind of relationship you needed. Then suddenly, after you've left, they're offering you exactly what was missing, and the meaning your heart may give to that is incredibly seductive. Walking away worked. My boundaries finally reached them. They needed to lose me to understand my value. Maybe all of this pain led us here. That story can make everything you've endured feel meaningful. It can make leaving feel worthwhile and returning feel like the reward at the end of an impossible journey. But this is where you need to remain grounded. An intense response to the fear of loss is not automatically the same thing as lasting transformation. Someone can genuinely feel terrified, emotional, regretful, and determined in a particular moment, and still fall back into familiar patterns if they haven't done the deeper, sustained work required for change. And this situation can reach deeper than the fears that kept you trapped before. Earlier patterns may have activated your anxiety and your fear of abandonment. They may have made you question whether you were enough or whether they would eventually leave. Those fears can keep a person attached, but they are painful. You know something is wrong because you're constantly hurting. Hope is different. Hope can feel beautiful. It can feel like healing. It can make you imagine the relationship you always wanted finally becoming possible. You begin hoping that they can truly love you the way you need to be loved. You hope that all your patience wasn't wasted. You hope that the future you've imagined together can finally become real. And perhaps the most powerful hope of all is believing that you don't have to choose between the person you love and the healthy relationship you deserve. That somehow at last, you can have both. That's why hope can be so difficult to question. Fear feels uncomfortable, so eventually you want to escape it. But hope feels like possibility. It feels like a door opening after you've spent so long standing in the dark. And that is why Avoidant Heart wants you to remember this. You don't have to reject hope, but you do need to give reality enough time to speak. Real change doesn't need to be proven in a desperate moment. It reveals itself slowly, consistently, and repeatedly, especially after the fear of losing you is no longer the thing driving someone's behavior. It can feel like everything you ever dreamed of is finally happening, and because you still love them, because a part of you may have always loved them, the idea that you could have them back and that they could finally be different is almost impossible not to want. Even when the rational part of your mind starts sending warning signals, what makes the situation confusing is the apparent proof they're offering. It no longer sounds like empty words. It looks like effort, and that can make it much harder to recognize whether you're seeing real growth or simply a powerful attempt to pull you back in. You've heard promises before. After enough broken promises, "I'll change," eventually loses its meaning when nothing follows. But attending therapy isn't just a promise. Reading about attachment patterns isn't just another statement. Having deep conversations about fears, wounds, and childhood experiences can feel far more substantial than words alone. It looks like evidence, and evidence is exactly what you may have needed in the past to believe that change was possible. That's what can make this situation so complicated. It doesn't necessarily repeat the old pattern in the same obvious way. Instead, it can appear to offer proof that this time is different. Your logical mind may struggle to dismiss it. Even the people who supported your decision to leave may begin wondering whether things have genuinely changed. And you may start questioning yourself. You may wonder whether holding your boundary is truly protecting you, or whether you're pushing away something good because you're too afraid to trust again. At the same time, timing matters. When someone reaches out before you've had the chance to fully heal, you're in a very different emotional place than you would be 6 months or a year later. With time, you may have processed the grief, rebuilt your routines, and created a life that no longer revolves around them. You may have gained the distance needed to see the relationship with greater clarity. You might even have moved forward into an entirely new chapter of your life. But when the emotional pull happens immediately after you leave, you're often still deeply connected. You're still grieving. Your love hasn't suddenly disappeared simply because you made the difficult decision to walk away. The loss is fresh, and a part of you may still be wishing there were some way to make the relationship work. In that state, the idea of getting them back can feel less like returning to something painful and more like relief from the pain of losing them. This is why you should be careful about making major decisions while you're still emotionally raw. When grief is unfinished, we can sometimes mistake the removal of pain for the solution to the problem that caused it. Another difficult dynamic can appear when the responsibility for the relationship suddenly seems to shift onto you. For so long, you may have been the one asking for more effort, more openness, and more consistency. You were patient. You explained what hurt. You gave opportunities for things to improve. But now the story can suddenly change. Now they're the ones saying they're trying. They're the ones seeking help. They're the one claiming to be doing the work. And you're the person saying no. That reversal can create enormous guilt. You may be made to feel as though refusing to return means you're unforgiving. As though you're throwing away a chance at something meaningful because you can't move beyond the past. Their openness may be compared to your caution, making you appear closed while they appear vulnerable, and guilt can be a powerful reason to abandon a boundary. You might return not because you've truly regained trust, or because you have enough evidence that the relationship is safe, but simply because it feels unbearable to reject someone who appears to be making an effort. But you are allowed to recognize effort without immediately giving someone access to you again. You can appreciate the work someone is doing and still decide that you need distance. Their growth does not create an obligation for you to return. So how can you tell the difference between genuine transformation and behavior that only appears when someone fears losing you? The answer is often found in time, consistency, and what happens when there is nothing to gain from impressing you. Real change is usually slow. It develops through sustained effort, reflection, and repeated practice. Healing long-standing attachment patterns isn't something that normally happens overnight. It can involve months or years of therapy, self-reflection, and learning how to respond differently when old fears are triggered. A person can absolutely begin changing after a painful loss. But beginning the work and completing the work are not the same thing. That's an important distinction. If someone contacts you shortly after you leave and presents themselves as completely transformed, it's reasonable to be cautious. Genuine healing tends to be a process rather than a finished performance. It requires learning new behaviors, practicing them repeatedly, and working through the deeper fears that created the old patterns in the first place. Real change should also exist even when you're not there to watch it. Someone who is genuinely committed to growth doesn't need your immediate return as proof that their work matters. They continue because the work is important for their own life. Over time, the changes become visible in the way they communicate with friends, family, colleagues, and other people around them. Not only in the exact moments when they're trying to restore a romantic relationship, and real growth is rarely perfect. Someone who is honestly working through avoidance may still have moments when vulnerability feels frightening. Old instincts may return. They may sometimes feel the urge to pull away and have to consciously choose a different response. They may openly admit that they're struggling. Pressure and urgency make it difficult to think clearly. A person who is genuinely changing should understand why trust cannot be rebuilt in a few conversations. Given the history, they should understand your hesitation. They should recognize that you may need to see consistency over a long period before you could possibly feel safe again. Genuine growth doesn't need to rush you. Someone doing the work for themselves might say, "I understand why you don't trust this yet. I know I need to show consistency over time. I'm not asking you to make a decision today. I wanted you to know what I'm working on, and I'm going to continue whether or not we get back together." That approach is patient. It respects your autonomy. It doesn't turn healing into a bargain where you must return in exchange for their effort. But when someone makes you feel as though you must decide immediately, as though the opportunity will disappear if you take too long, pause and ask yourself why there is a deadline on your healing. You are allowed to take the time you need. Pay close attention to how they explain the end of the relationship. Genuine responsibility means owning your choices without immediately balancing them against someone else's mistakes. It can sound like, "My behavior caused real harm. My fear kept me from showing up the way you needed. I understand that my actions contributed to losing something valuable, and I take responsibility for that." There is no hidden condition attached to it, no attempt to make you equally responsible in the middle of an apology. No excuse disguised as an explanation. Be careful when accountability is followed immediately by a quiet shift of blame. "I know I had problems, but you put too much pressure on me. I should have communicated better, but you didn't always give me enough space." Those statements may contain pieces of truth about the relationship, but they are different from taking full responsibility for one's own behavior. A sincere apology can include context without using that context to erase accountability. Avoidant heart wants you to remember that you don't have to decide whether someone is a good person or a bad person before protecting your peace. You don't have to prove that their growth is fake in order to keep your distance. And you don't have to return simply because someone is finally beginning the work you needed them to do long ago. You can allow time to reveal what words and dramatic moments never can. Real change doesn't demand that you abandon your boundaries to prove that you believe in it. If it is genuine, it will still be there after the urgency is gone.